Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce and another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Jetzt kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inzo an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!
Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. I'm joined by Joey Meyer, Brian, and all the Borussia Dortmund signings that have been made so far in this summer transfer window after the Club World Cup. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining. First Borussia Dortmund guest. We'll hear it from you now. I got a little.
Are there
giggle
signings
out of
in the
Joey.
room with us right now?
That's what I was waiting
I
for.
got a little giggle. I'll take that. But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about some of the news that's come out in recent days about Borussia Dortmund's transfer interest, and then we will be discussing the player profiles and projections for the entire midfield. Our favorite videos, most watched videos last year were some of these videos, and so we're going to be breaking down what you can expect from every member of the Borussia Dortmund midfield that's still on the books. So maybe even a little Gio Reyna talk. I don't know. That'll be... Why would we do that? Anyway, how are you guys doing?
I'm hot. It's very hot here. But it's good. Overall, can't complain. Life's good. How about you, Eli? How about you, Joey?
Doing well, busy, also hot, but thankfully I have quiet AC, so I should be okay through this recording.
Isn't that a joy?
Yeah, Brian's very upset right now because his AC machine is very loud and we cannot record with it because then you guys would be hearing a little the entire time. So we're not going to do that to you. We're going to make
It's a labor of
Brian
love.
suffer.
But shout out to
love.
Brian.
And so, Joey, let's just make sure we talk nice and slowly for this next hour.
I hate you.
Talk too slowly and it'll be a 2-hour recording.
So, L'Equipe, to start it off, we'll start off with a little information that was released by L'Equipe. Borussia Dortmund are interested in bringing former Wolfsburg player Maxence Lacroix back from Crystal Palace, who are currently in the Europa League, and paying those Premier League wages. A guy that's just moved in the last year or two. Apparently, Borussia Dortmund are interested in bringing him back to the Bundesliga. How would you feel about this signing?
I didn't realize he wasn't at Wolfsburg anymore until I saw this, if I'm going to be honest. He's a reasonable center back, but I certainly think that there could be better options on the market right now. But again, I haven't really watched any of this player in the last year.
Brian, I'm going to need someone other than Patrick Starr to give me some analysis on this.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're not looking at a cheap signing if you're looking at Lacroix. I believe that he's on a contract until 2029, and his value right now is at 25 million euros or something like that. I mean, from what I remember of him in the Bundesliga, he was quite aggressive. He was very adept at, intercepting a pass. But at the time, he was also a lot younger. So now you're talking about a 25-year-old for like a lot of money. This is not a player that's going to come and sit on your bench, which is kind of what we need because we technically do have Anton and or Sule, and then Schlotterbeck when he comes back. I mean, we already have 3 center backs that will be vying for that starting position. And I'm all for, having another talented option. It's just for the amount of money you'd be looking at. It's just a lot of investment to eventually have a disgruntled player who may or may not end up in that, starting position. So I would prefer if we went, younger prospect that we could kind of mold behind the likes of Sula, the likes of Anton, because both of them are older as well. So it's like, I don't know. I like the player in theory. I just don't think it fits for what we need right now.
Yeah, this is a move that I think would be better next summer. Like, it would make a lot more sense if we were signing like a top level 25-year-old center back for a big amount of money to replace Nicolas Sula, who I'm expecting to play like 3,000 minutes this coming season.
Right.
because you have, like you said, Schlotterbeck and Anton are taking up 2 spots. I think we have Sula essentially being third option with a solid fourth and fifth of Ben Sabaini and Emre Can. This would not really affect Ben Sabaini's role at that left center back position. But also, like, Emre Can is making a lot of money. He's in that area. You don't want to make him disgruntled. I do think I'm a little higher on the player than both of you guys, but my issue with this signing would be similar to Nemecha. Actually, he was in the same Bible group. He hasn't had the same public controversies, but if you go to a bigger club that cares a little bit more about social things, he's gonna bring that controversy because he may not be as accepting. But I don't want to speculate too much about that because we just don't know. But we do know that he was attending the same church, which has the many controversial messages that Nemecha likes to enjoy in his free time and make a little public at here and there. So I don't want to talk too much about it because the player hasn't made it public in the same way Nemecha has, but maybe you would almost say like the fans have made it more public because it was a bigger issue when he went to Borussia Dortmund compared to Wolfsburg, where there just are a lot less fans. So I think you could see that become a controversy if Dortmund is going to target him. But if we have no more thoughts on that, we can move on to our next story. We have multiple sources discussing James McAtee, who was impressed by his visits to Frankfurt and Dortmund. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I'm actually kind of keen on McAtee. I think, especially at his age at 22, he could be a promising player to break into the first team where he might not be doing so at Manchester City. And one fear that I have going into this new season with the smaller squad, and we'll get into that more on that later, is the fatigue that Julian Brandt will endure playing every single match. I do like the player, but I think we've got to get somebody, and I think McAtee does play as a 10, but if we can get somebody who can maybe back up Brandt and essentially take over that role as a 10, then I'm all for it. I think the price might be a bit on the higher side, but if you look at the potential, I think he could be a good option to fill that role. What do you think, Brian?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm very much a proponent of this as well. I think this would be a very good move. Overall, you are looking at a player that can play out wide, and as you mentioned, Joey, you want someone that can play a 10. He is also very much capable of playing that 10 role. And I do think this is a very good player that could very much push Brandt for that starting position. It wouldn't be like the situation we have with Giorena now that, be it, just the coaches didn't feel that he was capable of pushing Brandt because obviously he didn't get as many minutes. Or he simply just wasn't capable of doing that and didn't show it in training enough. I do think that this player has the talent and the willpower and the greed to be able to come in and be like, yeah, like I do want to establish myself here. Because that is what usually happens when it comes to these young English players. They do come out here. They do want to establish themselves. They want to show, the best possible account of themselves. But overall, from what I've seen from McAtee, he is a very talented player. We are missing players right now that can play out wide with the Duranville injury, with Gittins gone at this point. So you do have the versatility there that I guess, the club has been looking for and talking a lot about. So he ticks a lot of the boxes. He's young. He's a player that eventually either A, he stays and really becomes, cornerstone, or B, they sell him on for a higher fee. I am very keen on this player, and I do hope that this transfer does go through.
I mean, like, I liked the player a year ago, and he's played less minutes than Giorena since that time. I'm so out on this. I'm gonna be honest. We're bringing in a guy to rotate with Brandt who hasn't played for a year. He's essentially had a year off. He's trained with the best players in the world at Manchester City. That's cool. Pep can teach him things, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, minutes are minutes. You have to play on the pitch. You have to play in real matches. There's not a substitute for that. and this is a guy who just missed essentially a full year of football, and we're talking about a purchase of 25 million euros. He played less league minutes than Gio Reyna. He played less than half as many Champions League minutes as Gio Reyna. I'm not asking for a ton of minutes. I'm asking for a guy that gets on the pitch. And there's guys that get on the pitch and guys that don't. And right now, this past season, at a very good team, very talented team, James McAtee did not do it. And I need a guy, like, we're talking about rotating for Brandt, starting over Brandt. This guy couldn't even, this guy got less minutes last season, I believe, than Nico O'Reilly.
I mean, his impact in those minutes hasn't been that bad. I mean, from what I can see here, 4 goals, and what about a little bit over 460 minutes or something like that. Also still pretty young. I don't know. I think we have to also take into account that this is Manchester City. This isn't a team that young players have often really broke through in. I mean, you have a player like Cole Palmer, barely got any minutes, goes to Chelsea, and completely pops off. So I do think there is precedent there for these players that may not have gotten as many minutes as they would have liked or we would have hoped for, but have still done well at other clubs that they've gone to. I mean, even if we think about Gittins, I mean, he was obviously younger, he was an academy product and all that. I just think that we've had a lot of good luck with the Manchester City Academy, and this guy has shown promise. So I do think that, I don't want to discount just because he's had less minutes this season, and say, oh, okay, it's not worth it anymore. Obviously, it's not worth it for every price. I've even seen 35 million euros get flatted there, and that's obviously not cool. But I think the 2025, I do think that it'd still be reasonable. Personally, this is my personal opinion.
Yeah,
I think Brian and I are just a little more optimistic than Squidward.
I think that this is a guy, he played less minutes than Nico O'Reilly, who I just mentioned, who is a 19-year-older out of their academy, and it's different when you sign Cole Palmer, who's 21 and has a very, very big reputation, where McAtee doesn't have that. McAtee has a good season in the championship, a season where he did nothing for a side that was capable of doing nothing. So I don't want to hold that against him, that season in the Premier League on loan with Sheffield. That's whatever. I don't care about that. 6 months ago, he'd been sitting out for 6 months. He's not really played in the second half of the season either. I think he went from 100 minutes to 300 minutes. We need a player, it just seems a waste to me to bring in a guy, whether it's for 25 million or a loan, that can't do the job that we need him to do. There is
that's
an
assumption.
On the.
That is an assumption.
I'm not saying he can't. I'm saying there is a chance he cannot. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. That there's not a guarantee he's any better than Carney Chukwuemeka, because Carney Chukwuemeka in the seat he was around the 500 minute mark. McAtee's a little bit below that. So you're essentially taking a risk with a guy that is, again, going to come in and not be able to do what you want him to do, which is force the team to be able to rotate, or not even force, just allow Julian Brandt to get a rest for a year there. Chukwuemeka wasn't that, and this is a guy that's playing the same amount of minutes. Granted, he's playing more career minutes, but still.
Could you just go, because I'm curious now, why do you think he's incapable of being a rotation option? I just don't understand.
I'm not saying he's incapable. I'm saying if I'm going to spend 20 to 25 million, or if I'm going to spend a loan fee of 5 to 6, I think there are guys that are going to be out there where you can get a little bit more, a more surety of a guy who's eventually going to be able to do that, or a guy that is capable of doing that right now. If we get the 5 million pound loan fee, there's guys on the continent, you can go and get a guy from France for 10 million. Maybe you have to pay a little bit more up front, but that guy can be a squad player. A guy I talked about on the last episode. I'm going to buy some time to pull up his name. but essentially, like, you go and you get a guy from Austria like Mamadou Sangare. Like, that's a guy who's going to be available for around 10 million, which is roughly half of what this guy is. And Sangare has played in a much worse league. He's the same age though. Um, he's played 8 and he's played 10. And so he's going to give you a little bit more flexibility, and he's shown like considerable flashes, not necessarily the creativity or the scoring threat of McAtee, but he's shown you like a full season, a ton of defensive work, stuff like that. You can go to like Scotland and get a guy like Lennon Miller, again more of an 8, but he's shown you like a ton of minutes, a ton of passing ability, and like that's a guy that can eventually mature into a 10. And I'd rather do that and get a guy who's maybe a year away from being a solid contributor than getting a guy who just hasn't played for a year. Another great guy like this, he's played a little bit more wide, but I think he can play centrally, is Konstantinos Karetsis. This is a guy who played about 2,000 minutes in Belgium. He's like 17 years old, incredible creative numbers, and that's a guy who can dribble a little bit and mature into a real star, and he can probably maybe he's a year away, but this is a guy that like I can see the vision on, where like the floor for McAtee is going to be a little higher, but the ceiling just isn't there to me because he's missed that full year. And even what you're seeing in the numbers, it's nothing creatively off the bench. It's just a lot of XG, which is what you'd kind of expect from a guy in a dominant team, like to come off the bench and get chances. Like, I'm not seeing like the passing I'd want to see. I'm not seeing like the defensive work off the bench you'd want to see, because you want a guy who's in that dominant of a side to be like looking good at everything if he's going to come off the bench, whereas McAtee's like looking very good in very few areas, and in that small of a sample size, that's just creating a ton of question marks for me.
I think one thing that gives me a little bit more confidence in McAtee, and take from this what you will, is that I'm not a professional scout, and the links that we've had with McAtee have persisted. It hasn't been like, one little build article and then it's gone. There does seem to be concrete interest in Dortmund, and I'd like to believe that that's for a reason. Our scouts have done phenomenal with certain transfers. They've really crapped the bed on others, but at the end of the day, that's who we're linked with and seems to be the player being looked at. So as much as I think that there necessarily are other options that might be better, the timing of securing transfers like that, of convincing the players to be interested, sending scouts to the right areas to convince those teams. I really don't watch much of the Scottish League, so I can't really speak on too many of the players on that front. But kind of like what Brian said earlier, that we've had some good luck with the Manchester Academy in the past. There seems to be a good relationship between the two clubs, so I would hope that Sebastian Kiel might be able to work a little bit of magic in lowering the transfer price if the deal is right. And if we could get McAtee for maybe 15 or 18, that might be pushing it. I think that really could be a beneficial player to have. And if everything goes south, if he really doesn't seem to fit the part, then I think an English talent, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he's English, but an English talent is always going to attract interest from the Premier League. So if we needed to offload him in a couple of seasons, then I think we probably could find somebody, at least to make our money back, on a transfer of a 24 or 25-year-old McAtee.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's
fair.
totally possible as well. The one thing I will also say, and I've always been a big proponent, and sorry for cutting you off, Eli, I just wanted to get this out before I forget it. I'm a big proponent of, us scouting in other leagues and finding talent elsewhere, because I do think we've been to both Bundesliga centric, and I do think sometimes when we go to England, it is a bit of a cop out. But I will say there is something to be said, because I totally get what you're saying with him not having played for as much this year as he did last year, or had as much of an impact. But he has shown he's capable. What you are getting in that is a player that has already shown that they're capable to do it in one of the top 5 leagues. The Austrian league and the Scottish league are not in that bracket. So while I'm sure those players are talented and could do a job, there's no, not saying that it's not possible, because obviously we've brought in players from the Polish league and Japan and all these other places that like have done it in the Bundesliga. I'm just saying you do have that little bit of insurance, and I do think also Joey does make a good point with the fact that you will always have a market for that English player, because some other team, be it an Aston Villa or someone else, a Sunderland, whoever, depending on how well he does, I think they will come back in for him, because he will be a name that they're familiar with. So at the end of the day, I do think like it's not as risky as initially we might try and pose it to be. But once again, I do have faith in the player. I do think that from what he has shown, and like his versatility too. I mean, we do need a player that can play out wide too. And with how slow transfers have been going, I don't see us going for multiple players at this point in time. Maybe 2 max, because we're really, really, really taking it slow this summer. And we'll talk, I guess, a little bit more about that later. But if this is a player that they see and the scouts have seen and the bosses have seen that, okay, he fits and he can play multiple roles that can help us out, I'm for trying it.
Well, just to talk about like the 2 main points you're saying there is like the floor. I do agree. This transfer has a high floor, because like, let's say you bring him in for 25. I think the absolute floor is you sell him for 15. Like that is the worst case scenario. In 2 years, you sell him back to England for 15 to like a just relegated club. But like the last season where this guy looked good was 22-23. And like last season, like I talked about, he finished 20th. So there's not much you can really talk about that. But he wasn't even like a locked in starter. He didn't even hit 2,000 minutes. He's never hit 2,000 minutes in a senior campaign or even in a youth campaign for Manchester City in the Premier League Division 2 for those youth teams. My issue with McAtee is a bit more the opportunity cost. And that's like you could sign one of these guys that's a bit younger, half the price, and potentially going to mature into a guy who could really be good and like win you games, win you titles, get you there. Because I don't feel that about McAtee. He could be very good, but again, like you haven't really seen Man City integrate players that they've loaned out, and we just signed, like Joey said, like we've had some good experiences with Man City signing Jamie Gittins and Jadon Sancho on free transfers, but we also just signed a guy for 20 million who's not really shown much in Jan Koto, who was on loan for Manchester City. So there are 2 sides of the sword here, and like Brian was saying, like we've talked a lot about we don't want Dortmund to just sign Bundesliga players, but the issue we had with signing Bundesliga players is that you're paying more for the talent because they're top 5 league clubs. Their clubs have a little bit more money. And when you're signing a bit more of a known quantity, you pay more. This isn't an unknown quantity from a lower end Premier League club. This is a guy from a Champions League club, and like you're not getting a bargain here. Manchester City sell for pretty good fees. Their academy players have proven to be pretty good, but like this isn't a bargain. This is like Wonder Bread. That's what it is. Like it's gonna do a job. It's not gonna impress me, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, the best part of having a podcast like this with multiple personalities is that we're not always going to have the same opinion, but since we've talked about James McAtee for quite a bit now, I think we should move on to our next rumor.
Agreed.
Oh, sorry. The last thing I wanted to say is, like, if we signed McAtee a year ago, I'd be enthused, but, like, the timing is just a little off. But yeah, let's get on to the next one. Chelsea have not sanctioned another loan for Carney Chukwuemeka. They only want to sell. Dortmund are looking at alternatives. This is from Fabrizio Romano.
Stop pursuing, move on.
Yeah, That's kind of what I had to. At the end of the day, like this is a player like has shown that shown sparks of what he could be. He's been injured a lot, like, and if they're really if they're really pushing to like sell him for 25, 35 at this point, you got to move on to something else because you're going to run out of time regardless. Like you need to look for other alternatives at this point. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mentioned Gio Reyna as a joke, that we were going to maybe have to talk about him because he's still contracted to the club when we profile and project all of our midfielders. And the only thing I'll say about Chukwuemeka, because our listeners will have heard me say enough at this point, is I just can't wait to talk about a player that gets more minutes than Gio Reyna. That's my goal for this show. But let's talk about our next story. Ethan Nwaneri, another player who's probably right around that Gio Reyna threshold for minutes, would have cost Borussia Dortmund 35 million euros despite only having 1 year left on his contract, has apparently decided to renew with Arsenal. Some reporters have said we never even spoke to his agent. Some guys are saying on the internet that this was our number one target. We didn't get him, and now we're not going to sign anyone. I don't know, man.
35 million is a lot for a 19-year-old, unless you really know that he's going to jump to stardom.
Unless he's a 17-year-old Jude Bellingham and you pay 25. I mean, that's the two sides of the coin, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're either getting a really, really good player that eventually will go on to play for the Real Madrids or whatever of the world, or you're taking a massive risk. Obviously, I think this, like, it's tough because I almost wanted to say this is like a bigger risk than McAtee because he's younger, but I do know how talented he is, so I don't really want to fully say that. Like this one for me is just, I think the main thing is like when it comes to this guy, I never really saw him leaving Arsenal. He is one of their academy players, and you really don't see Arsenal academy products leave like that. They do at least go into the first team a lot of the time. I do think that Arsenal is a little bit better than City in integrating these players, so they have a pathway. So it's not as simple, I feel like, to just reach out to one of these players and be like, oh, hey, but like come to the Bundesliga. I feel like Arsenal definitely showed him a path, and I do think that it might have been a little bit silly to put all our eggs in one basket if that's the case. Because I don't see Arsenal wanting to get rid of him or allowing him to leave. So.
Well, Brian, Arsenal did just spend 50 million euros to sign a guy in his position, while also having Bukayo Saka, one of the best right wingers in the world.
There's a caveat to that because this guy can also play centrally. So we don't know what the plan is with that. So he may have more time there, and I know they have a bunch of central midfielders, one that they just signed for 55, 60 million or whatever. But I think he's a more creative profile, so it's a little bit different there. But I get what you're saying. I hear you. But
yeah, I mean,
I do think they are better at showing that path.
He's more of a natural goal scorer. This is a guy that likes to shoot a lot. His XG over performance is very high, but he also took a ton of shots from like outside the area, not great positions. He's a great ball striker. He's a very, very talented dribbler. Like that's his skills. He can progress the ball, and he shoots a lot, and he has good technique. He's also only 18. I made the joke that he's close to the Gio Reyna minutes model. He does have more. He has considerably more. So I would like to apologize to Nwaneri. That was a joke. He is very, very talented. He's an 18-year-old. If we signed him, I would be like, okay, this is the Dortmund I grew up with. This is very much in that we're going to sign the best teenager or one of the best teenagers we can.
Very talented,
that's not already at a top club or locked down to a long-term contract. I think this is a great guy to monitor for next season. I don't know if he was the guy to target this year. You kind of got to hope that, like, Bukayo Saka doesn't have an injury this season, Madueke doesn't have an injury this season, and that keeps this guy's opportunities limited, and you get to January, and he's like, hey, I heard you were a little interested.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Sebastian Kehl's like, here is a bag.
That changes a little bit.
With a lot of money in it. Here is a blank check. Put a number down. We'll work it out. That's what I think would happen. I don't think that this was probably ever this summer move because it never really lined up for me.
Yeah, I
But
think I'm the same boat there.
this one, I will say, this player is an exciting player. Unlike I think everyone else we've signed, where it's like Lacroix is like pretty good, and then we have McAtee who's like a guy.
He's also
Next
good. Give him his credit. He is good. I do think he is good.
Well, he should have a. I will say he's good once he has a good season in the top flight, and I think that's fair.
Fair.
Like I'm not a good podcaster until we get much more famous, and then I can be analyzed for my talent. I have to, like I've been very good at this level, but I have to prove it in front of a bigger audience, Ryan.
I mean, how many minutes did Nwaneri have last season?
1,100 roughly
Okay.
between the Champions League and that's almost
Three
3 times.
It's a bigger sample
Yeah,
size.
fair.
It's definitely a bigger sample size.
Yeah, it's almost 3 times what McAtee got.
I guess the one thing I will say about Nwaneri is like I just want to clarify the point I made is like definitely a talented player. I do think 35 million is a big chunk of money to spend on him. But like if you have a payoff, you have a big payoff, and if you don't have a payoff, then you're kind of up shit's creek. So it's like it is risky in that sense, but 100% very talented player, and I wouldn't say no. So
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't touch him with a stick for 35 million euros because of just the way injuries happen in this game. There's just too much uncertainty for what you've seen from him because it's been 1,100 minutes that aren't good, but that show a lot of promise. So, like, I wouldn't spend that much money, but this is a player that would excite me regardless of the fee. But yeah, I wouldn't spend that much. The next story we have, the new squad for the upcoming season will be around 22 men, smaller than a World Cup squad that now comprises 26 professionals. I sent a quick text to both our group chat and my local fan club about this that I think was much appreciated, where I said that this is either going to go one of two ways, and it's going to be the first season we see a lot of academy players get minutes, or it's going to go the same way the last 2 seasons have gone, and we're going to be out of every competition by December and sign some cool players on loan to really up their value for whatever club they play for next.
So I do think we have to put an asterisk on this news because the source is Build, and as we've seen even just over the last couple of weeks, I think Build published an article about the 70 million euro price tag that we put on Adeyemi to sell him, and not 48 hours later they were publishing a piece about how Adeyemi wants to stay at Dortmund his entire career. So I don't think Bild has any clue what they're reporting other than clickbait half the time. It's hard for me to believe that Dortmund is planning to go into the season with a squad as small as 22, just because of the lack of depth that would leave should we get a couple injuries, and because we have a couple of players who are already expected to leave. Like you said, that this could mean, of course, that maybe we're going to bring up a few of the youth players to be backups, but that one then confuses me with some of our academy players who have recently departed, either transfers away or loans. So what do you think, Brian?
So I think I've seen this, and I mean, it might have just been from another source that isn't as credible or just as credible as Build, I guess. But I think I've seen more than one source say this.
Gotcha.
But I agree with you 100%. This is a complete mistake. If this is real, this is one of the worst things we could do. To not only like we saw how thin we were in certain positions last season when injuries hit. To look at that and then say, yeah, let's compound that by making the squad even smaller, even though there's more Champions League games now. Like the season is just overall longer. You just had the players playing in the Club World Cup. People are going to be tired. Like it's asinine to me. It doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So like Eli said, maybe it'll be like youth players coming in, but I doubt it. I just doubt it. I just don't believe it at all.
I'm with Brian. We're gonna do a quick fun game here. I'm gonna run through every name that is currently contracted to Borussia Dortmund. And I'm gonna say if we are very likely to get rid of this guy, we're just gonna say yes and not count him. Can one of you count past 10? Because I would struggle with that. Can I get a volunteer, one of you, to keep track of how many players we're at?
Sure, I got it.
He has his notepad,
Okay.
so let's do that.
Gregor Kobel, staying. Deont Ramai, he's not. Alexander Meyer, staying. Patrick Drews, staying. That's 3. Silas Straczynski, that's our 4th string goalie. He's going to play with the reserves. Nico Schlotterbeck. We're at 3 or 4. I already lost count.
We're at 5 if you include the 4th string keeper.
We are not. We're not doing that.
Then we're at 4.
Okay. So, Nico Schlotterbeck. Valdemar Anton. That's 5. Nicolas Sula. 6. Filippo Mane hasn't played a top flight minute. We're not counting him. Daniel Svensson. We're at 6. Almugera Kabar.
You're at 8 now.
That's not count. Almugera
He did
Kabar
say he'd struggle, so...
hasn't played 100 senior minutes. We're not counting him. Did I say Benzabaini or did I skip him?
I don't think he said
I don't think he said
yet.
Benzabaini yet.
Okay, so he'll be 8, right?
Yep.
Okay, Jan Koto, senior player. Julian Ryerson, senior player.
That's
Emre
10.
Can.
Emre Can's 11.
Sally Ozchen, is he staying?
No, I'm going to say no.
Okay, I'll go with what you're saying. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced he has any buyers right now, but I think he will. I think he will be sold. Actually, I agree.
Turkey, somewhere in Turkey. There's been multiple clubs, so
yeah. And Taliaspor, Nuri Sahin will be back there. He'll join him.
okay.
I'm just spitballing. Felix Mecha, he's a senior player. Job Bellingham, senior player. Marcel Sabitzer, senior player. Pascal Gross, senior player.
That's
Julian
15. Brandt is 16.
Julian Brandt, 16. Okay, Giovanni Reina, he's not going to be on the team next year.
No, he's gone.
Nope.
Julian Duranville, does he count? That's
He does, but he's in. So he counts, but right now, just like Schlotterbeck and Chan, he's injured. So we're already getting into the injury territory. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Go ahead, Eli. Finish up.
Okay, so next we have Kareem Adeyemi, senior player. Sarah Gurasi, senior player. Maxi Bayer, senior player. Sebastian Aller, potentially the secret plan of Niko Kovac, even though Bild has already reported that he is staying as our backup striker. How many are we at, Joey?
20 without Haller, 21 with Haller.
Okay, so that's 21, and then our final guy has been linked heavily with VfB Stuttgart. We even have a fee being bandied about of 7 million euros, and this is 19-year-old attacker Cole Campbell.
Did we skip
Are-
Bayer?
are we
Did
counting
I miss
him?
that?
No, but he said Bayern.
We counted by
Okay, all
That's
right.
22. We already have 3 injuries.
That is not good. That's not good, guys.
We already have 3 injuries right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're down to
there's
9.
Oz,
4 injuries. So
Ozcan too,
18.
I think.
If you count Sally Ozchen, he's technically injured right now.
So, okay. So, yeah, 19, 18 fit players going into the season. You're going to tell me that's not a train wreck? That's a train wreck
Yeah.
waiting to happen.
It is.
If you're counting, we need 3 starting center backs. Since one is injured, essentially you're already... Actually, 2 are injured, because we're counting Emre Can as the center back. So
You're only down to your starters.
Not even, because you're playing both your left backs at once. Like, you don't even have a substitute left back.
Well,
because
no.
Remy Bensebaini
yeah.
is starting the season at left center back.
Right, you're playing...
And-
Yeah.
Because Sean is hurt and Schlotterbeck are both hurt, then you have only academy players left to cover the central defense positions. And, what's that? Your left back or your left center back got a yellow card. We need to get them off the pitch.
What happens when somebody else gets a bad injury?
Pascal Gross, you're moving over. I don't know.
Like,
Joey,
yeah,
Joey.
it's-
I think we finished the game and we've realized that this is a terrible idea.
it is an asinine idea.
I mean, who could have seen that coming, guys?
The sarcasm is palpable.
Yep. Because a couple of these guys, I mean, we really, if the idea is having a smaller squad, then we really could use guys like Kiel Vetjen and I think Bueno just came back from loan and we just transferred him out. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
if we're offloading the academy prospects who are in their early 20s, then that doesn't give me much hope that we're bringing academy players into the senior squad for a lot of minutes this season.
Because you're
Well-
selling off the players that might have actually been able to fill those roles. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So the issue that in terms of bodies, in terms of just the numbers, not quality, we do have the numbers in central midfield.
Yeah.
Because you have 4 guys that can all play central midfield, and then you have multiple guys from other areas that can cover. So, like, let's say we play, like, a 3-4-3, and we're going to start Adiemi, Bayer, and Garassi. Like, you're a little thin with your wingers, but you do have Cole Campbell, you do have Duranville, so you technically have depth at all those attacking positions in the 3-4-3, and you can then play Brant in midfield, you can play Emre Can in midfield, you can
When
play
he's not
Svensson
injured.
in midfield, like,
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, eventually, like,
Yeah.
during the course of the season, like, you can shift it around that way, but then you're so thin in attack that you have to play a 3-5-2, and if you sack your manager, you're stuck playing a 3-5-2 or expecting Cole Campbell, who did get 1,000 minutes in the third tier. So, like, I think you can rely on him to be fit for 1,000 minutes, although he did have some injury issues last season and would now be playing against better opposition and more physically imposing players. Like, you could count on him to be available for 1,000 minutes, but you're now counting on Karim Adeyemi to be available for a lot of minutes if you're not playing a 3-5-2, and even if you are, then you essentially have him and Bayer trading off. So you're looking at a lot of minutes there, and if
Adeyemi
one
has
of
his
them
own
gets
injury
hurt, now
history.
they have to start every game. Garassi, like you said, has his own injury history. Sebastian Aller has his own injury history. And the biggest issue for me is that, like, Remy Bensebaini is currently penciled in as our starting left center back, and he's also our backup left back, and he's also supposed to play, like, left wing back, which, like, he did a admirable job of last season, but it's just this whole idea, it's like we've seen the same movie the last 2 years and it's not looked pretty.
And that's the thing. You wonder, right? Like, these people are obviously professionals. They do this for a living. And I'm not going to claim to be any expert because, you know, I've never worked in that environment. I've written about it. I've never worked in that environment. But if we are seeing this, and it's apparent, it doesn't take experience, I don't think, in the field to look at this and be like, this is a very risky move. What is it that is going through their minds that is kind of cluing them into saying, yeah, this is a risk we're willing to take? That's not what I'm able to wrap my head around. I don't know about you guys, but for me, like, that's the main thing for me. Like, I just can't wrap my head around that.
It doesn't make enough sense to me, which is why I feel like we've got to kind of wait and see what happens with this. Yeah.
The one thing I will say, and this is something that I've been kind of thinking about for the last couple of weeks as well, we haven't made any signings yet. We have always complained about the fact that signings have been made very rashly at times. Bodies have been brought in that haven't fit the squad. My hope, and the optimistic side of me, is that they're trying to consciously take a step back from that, really assess who it is that they want, and bring those targets in to fit the squad in the way that they need them to fit the squad, as opposed to just bringing in someone haphazardly. Because we've talked about it in the chat. They've brought in a lot of signings that haven't necessarily fit what the team has needed in the past. So I want to think and I want to hope that this time the reason that it's so slow and it's as meticulous as it is because they are being meticulous, like actively. And that's what my hope is.
Yeah, so
Me too.
Clubs do plan out their transfers like a year in advance, but that doesn't necessarily mean they don't know on a list like guys they want, and they don't know how these guys are going to come available, because a guy I mentioned earlier on this show in Konstantinos Karetsis, like, it looked almost nailed on that he was going to Arsenal earlier in this window, and then instead Arsenal signed a guy for 50 million euros in his position. Now all of a sudden he's available, and you have one of the best like U18 wingers on the market. He could be available, and he could be available for less than he was going to go to Arsenal for, because we don't have Premier League money. So that's like, they could be playing the market. And what I said about this, and I think Brian also agreed, I don't know who had the thought first, but we both thought this independently because we're both so smart. Look at what happened. Why are you laughing? Look at what happened with Daniel Svensson.
Compliments.
In the winter window, because essentially there were 0 leaks, and then all of a sudden it's like Daniel Svensson has been spotted in the Dusseldorf airport, and he's like arrived in Dortmund.
And he was a big Liverpool target. He was a very big Liverpool target for a while.
Yeah, and he was very close to, I believe, joining Bologna in Italy, and then all of a sudden it was like the Bologna moves off. No one knew why. And he arrived in Dortmund, and that's when you learn. So there is a chance, like, we've been pretty negative, but there is a chance. We have so much left to talk about. What are the main needs? So when we're going to be talking about the midfield, we're going to just start by profiling every player in the midfield. I'm going to start with the 3 guys that may not be at the club next season. Carney Chukwuemeka, that appears off. Do we have anything to say on him? No, that we haven't already?
I think we just covered it earlier. It's a player. He as a player has shown only flashes, and the injury history is not worth the price. And if Chelsea are going to be as stubborn as they are, there's really no point. That's all I have to say.
I agree completely, and I wish him well and hope that he finds a club that he can play some regular minutes at.
Same. Wish him well.
And anything we need to add on Salihamidzic?
I mean, good luck, man.
I hope that he stays if we only have 22 players, because I feel like we'll need him for the depth.
That would be 23.
Otherwise,
still so thin.
I suppose I wish him well, because I like you guys. I do think that there's a really strong chance that he goes somewhere in Turkey.
Yeah, I think he ends up in Turkey, and maybe that frees up like another cheap, like, I don't know, like, let's do a 1.5 loan plus another 6 million and sign like UCL level fullback again. Why not run back that plan? Next up, Gio Reyna. So we haven't talked about, we do need to talk about this one. Potential bid from Parma allegedly rejected. Between 6 and 7 million euros. He is reportedly available for 10. I would be very happy to receive 10 million euros for Gio Reyna. That's about what I think we get. Do you guys disagree? Do you guys have any other options for him? Anywhere he's going to go?
I think Italy's I think when we've talked about it on numerous occasions, like where he might be able to go, I think Italy has always been one of those leagues that we've talked about, Italy or Spain. I think it's a great move for him. I think he can go there. He can rebuild his career. I do like the player overall for what we thought he would be and the flashes that he's shown. But it's clear that he doesn't have a future here at this point. He needs to go. He needs to reestablish himself, and I think this is a good move. So I wish him all the best. But we need a player that can actively compete with Brandt and eventually replace him. And Gio Reyna's not that guy. So at least right now.
Sorry, Brian. I'd love to see Gio go to Parma. Shout out to Tobias Jones, a writer and journalist who has written extensively on the Parma ultra scene. I think Italy would be great for Reyna. I know Parma just earned promotion to Serie A last summer, so I don't know what kind of funds or budget they have. But if they were able to muster up 10 million for a transfer for a player like Reyna, I think he would probably get some minutes. It's hard to say because Gio Reyna is Gio Reyna. But if we can get 10 million for him, I'll be happy. I'll be satisfied with that.
Have a nice day, Gio Reyna. Next up, we talked about Emre Can a little bit last week on our Defender preview. Do you guys see him playing any significant minutes in the midfield? Because I do not, and I don't need to talk about him on this episode beyond that.
No, when I was thinking about this episode, I mean, I just kind of put him in there particularly because of that body issue. He traditionally he has played midfield for us, so he is an option there. I was hoping that we would be able to have him move on as well and bring in a player which is much younger, has more potential to replace him and I guess his ability to play in that position. But considering his versatility and probably lack of suitors, they probably will keep him. So yeah, he's just another option at this point, just another body in my opinion.
Well, I was thinking about how Kovac might line up the 6 and 8 with Emre Can, and I mean, I very much think that between Job, Pascal Gross, Felix Nemecha, and Marcel Sabitzer, Emre Can is probably going to be left out of that group in terms of the pecking order under Kovac.
Yeah,
I could see Emre Can playing a significant role in the first half of the season in central defense, just because I feel like we're one injury away from having a big
yeah,
hole in our defense. If that's the case, I think that he could step into the position again like he did last season.
hmm
Um, I don't really see him going anywhere. I don't see him extending his contract. I think this is one that, I mean, as our team captain, they're probably just going to respect the contract and let him see it out this season.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he does have one more year left after this. I
Oh,
think
does he?
I
Oh,
could be wrong. My math could be off. Um, but yeah. So next up, let's go with your guy's favorite, my least favorite, Marcel Spitzer.
Yeah, I mean, I think a Sabitzer, obviously, and I guess this is a very obvious thing to say, but if we could get the Marcel Sabitzer we saw at the second half of Terzic's last season, I think that is a player that could be helpful, especially considering the midfield makeup that we have right now. Do I think we're going to get that player? I don't think so. I think it'll be largely a similar role he played to last season, especially in the second half, where he's kind of coming in as kind of a substitute. Very expensive substitute to have. It's just disappointing, because this is a player that has shown quality in the past and showed what he's capable of, even in a Dortmund shirt, but unfortunately it just didn't last. And unfortunately, it is just a very expensive player to have on the bench at this point in time. But he can play multiple positions. He can play 6, 8, 10. We could talk about the proficiency of that, but in a pinch, he is a versatile player. He can also play out wide in the attack, which obviously we're not going to talk too much about this week, more so next week. But he can play out wide for better or for worse. So you do have that versatility at least. And considering we need bodies right now and we don't have that many replacements, he may see more minutes in a little bit of all these positions. So you don't know where he may come in handy this season, considering the lack of players at this point in time. Once again, we don't know what happens in the transfer window. But if everything stays as we are saying right now, and the worst scenario does happen, I think it'll be at least good to have him in that versatile, with that versatile ability in those positions.
well, man, I don't know if I have too much to add to that, Brian. I agree with you on just about every point there. I do think that Sabitzer will get some starts this season, but it's going to be more as a rotation player than a first choice starter. Um,
100%, yeah.
I mean, with the extra Champions League games and the English week, so to speak, I just think we're really going to need some of that rotation. And I mean, and then again, the minute somebody gets injured, there's an opening for a lot of these guys that we're kind of relegating to bench roles. So I do think there's a role for Sabitzer. Like Brian said, I hope that we see the Sabitzer that we got a couple years ago in that Champions League run to the final. Afraid that we're going to get the Sabitzer that we had last season, but um, I think he's got at least some role to play. We'll see.
So for me, Marcel Sabitzer, like you said, Brian, if you get that second half under Terzic, where he had like 5 to 7 assists from 1.3 expected, he's a very good player. Even this past year, like his XG underperformance was like just getting kind of like him falling back in line because the season before he'd overperformed his XG as well as that expected assist performance. So I do think that he can play better than what he showed this season because he will get a
100%.
couple goals, but he's
Yeah.
probably going to continue to be worse at everything else. So while the goal scoring may get a little bit better because historically he is a pretty good finisher, and last season he was very poor, this next season he might get back to being like being able to finish a chance. But I do think that his pressing is going to continue to degrade and be a little bit less effective as it has each of the last like 5 seasons. Like we've seen a steady decline in that area. So I am worried about Marcel Sabitzer this year. I don't know what a successful, like, it's hard for me to envision a campaign for Marcel Sabitzer where he provides a value match of his transfer fee plus his contract.
Yeah, the transfer at this point, I don't
Mhm.
think you're gonna get that. Which is sad to say. But yeah, I mean, player in decline. Yeah, I just think at this point, like, and Joey said this as well, this is a player that, will be good for rotation, and I think that's the best that we can hope for.
Yeah, you have to be able to hope, and I do believe that Marcel Sabitzer will be good enough against the bottom 4 or 5 Bundesliga teams and some of the weaker opponents in the Champions League. And also by
Right.
him just playing less, you hope that you can see better from him. Because, like I
Right.
always say, with these, like, common sense dictates, I should say, rather than me. With these older players, you can either see them play at a lower level or play at a
Yeah.
similar level a lot less, and him playing a lot less hopefully helps out his performance. And now we'll talk about one of the younger players, some of the legs in midfield. We'll save the new signing for last to keep you guys entertained. But we have next up Felix Mecha. What do we expect from him?
I think he has to play a big role. Like at the end of the day, we did bring him in to be that sort of Joe Bellingham replacement when he did come in. So
Jude?
he was all sorry, Jude. I'm fried because of this heat. This see the thing is, I've been pushing the name Jude out of my name so I can just say Job, but I guess that's gonna come and bite me in the ass right now. Um,
Happens.
yeah, but the way we signed him as that Jude Bellingham replacement, there was already that expectation for him to be, a big player, even though he wasn't exactly the same player. Now we've added the expectation that he is, or at least the club sees him as possibly our starting six. And we have, a mixed bag when it comes to the players behind him to kind of replace him. So if he's not performing, maybe we bring in Pascal Gross, who was good, especially in the second half of last season. I mean, overall, if you look at his numbers from the season, it was pretty good. But he's also getting older, so you're putting more pressure on another player. That, for example, like Eli said with Sabitzer, do you want him having more minutes? Do you want him under more pressure? Or do you want him to be under less pressure and perform better because he's not playing as much and he's fresher when he's coming into these games? So I have big expectations if Felix Mecha stays, which it looks like he is. I don't think. I mean, there's been some like loose rumors about Manchester United or whatever, but who knows with that? I don't know if that's ever gonna materialize or anything like that. But if he does stay, he is alongside Job one of our two marquee midfielders at this point in time, and you have to have high expectations of him because you need him to perform.
Yeah, so he had a
Yeah.
25% jump in his progressive passes last season from 4 to 5, and you could kind of see a little bit of what the club wanted rather than playing that one true six. Because in the Club World Cup, it was him and Job kind of as dual eights, and that really allows them to kind of show off both of their athleticism. They're both very athletic, and they are both like historically they've done a lot of their work around the edge of the area. Nemecha as a shooter, Joe Bellingham as a hockey assist guy, and I think that is entertaining. My question for Joey is, do you think Nemecha can continue to develop as a passer to the point where he doesn't look out of place in Borussia Dortmund colors?
No, I don't. And this might be be my pessimistic take on the midfield, but I'm not the biggest fan of Mecha overall.
I don't think any of us here are, but
I mean, I think his first season was not the best with Dortmund. His second season was much better, but I would still only really rate it at okay. I think that he does have some really good performances in black and yellow, but he's had some really bad performances in black and yellow too. And I don't necessarily have confidence that this is the guy who's going to fill that 8 role. I mean, of course, we can talk about Pascal Gross too, because my biggest fear with Pascal Gross is his legs. I mean, the guy's the same age as me. So not I'm not thrilled, we could say, with the prospects. Again, there are a lot of things I love about Pascal Gross, and I hope that like he can continue to perform the way he did last season, maybe even a little bit more under Kovac. But at some point, Gross is going to slow down, and when he does, we need somebody who's really strong, who can pass well and also hold the midfield. And I'm just not sure that Nemecha is that guy, but I hope that he proves me wrong.
is that one player along, like I said, kind of alongside Job is kind of holding that midfield together, and you need him to perform because otherwise you're putting a lot of other players under pressure that may be able to perform. I mean, once again, Pascal Gross, kind of like you said, Joey, great player, undoubtedly capable of it, but physically it might be a big exertion, and it comes back to what we were saying. The type of depth we have and the amount of depth we have for midfield or any position right now is just, yeah, it's just really leaving us with a lot to be desired.
Okay, so that's actually a great transition because next up we have Pascal Gross. And like you said, Pascal Gross getting on a bit in age. And key to Pascal Gross's player profile and projection, the option year of his contract to tack on a third season is at a certain minutes, like if he hits a certain amount of minutes. I don't remember what the minutes are. I'm not even sure if it's public, and if it was public, would it be accurate? Regardless, do you think that's something the club would want him to hit? And I think that's something to keep in mind when you start this player profile and projection, Joey.
They might not have a choice. I mean, if the squad lacks steps, I mean, if we hit an injury crisis at some point, if a couple players aren't performing, if Pascal Gross is performing, I don't necessarily think it's going to be a matter of trying to help Gross hit the threshold or prevent him from hitting the threshold. I think he's probably going to, whatever the threshold is, I think Pascal Gross is likely to hit it out of necessity for the team.
And when it comes to whether we want him to hit it or not, I mean, once again, it'll come down to how he performs this season, if he's still, performing well, and it also depends on who we have in front of him. If we can trust the people in front of him and we just have him as that backup option, then I say yes, because he's an experienced player. He's shown that he's still quality. He can still have his moments of brilliance. He had more than one moment of brilliance last season. I mean, the dude had 14 assists. Like, at his age, that's pretty damn good. Like,
four in one game at one point, I think.
At 4 in one game.
Yeah.
So it's like, I put a lot of respect on Pascal Gross's name, and I do think that even just having him in the locker room for young, up-and-coming midfielders is great. He's a Dortmund fan at his core. You know he's going to run his heart out for the team. I think all that's very important. I think it's Pascal Gross's situation at Dortmund isn't as much about Pascal Gross as it is about the other players around him. And I think that's the main takeaway I have from all of this.
Well said.
Yeah, Pascal Gross is listed at only 3 centimeters or 1 inch taller than Marcel Sabitzer. I don't think that's accurate. I think the gap's a little bit wider. And another thing I'd say in terms of his physicality is because he's not that fast, he just has good endurance. That's something that you can see age a bit better in certain cases, and I think we've already seen it happen with Pascal Gross, where he has aged very well, and like that could be a good sign of things to come. But also, like, it is at the point with players at that age where it's like one injury and that's you're not getting anything out of them. So that is a concern. But the creativity is so good. Every time he's played, he's done just enough running to kind of keep up. He will probably have to cover some matches at fullback, but we're going to save Julian Brandt for the attackers video because this episode has been unbelievably long. But yeah, let's talk about Job Bellingham, our second to last midfielder to discuss. He looked great in the Club World Cup. I'm going to go out there and say it. My only concern, I will say, he played like 4,000 minutes last year and played every minute of the Club World Cup, and that's a lot of football.
Yeah, and it's a lot of pressure to put on him. Like, I know, like, he has the experience to play those types of minutes because he's already done it. But you don't want to do that unless you need him to. But once again, just like with Felix Nemecha, this is a player that Dortmund will be relying on heavily, and you will want him to be the starter and performing because of the options you have behind him. So you don't want him to get injured, so you don't want to really, but you also don't really want to rest him because the quality will drop. So unless you bring in other players around him that can support him, you're not really fully setting him up for success. So it is a bit of a catch-22 situation. But when it comes to him, just overall, yeah, I expect a lot from him at this point. He's one of our most talented players, probably our most talented midfielder at this point. So it's like you need him to perform. You need him to do well. And he's shown, like you said, Eli, his quality at the Club World Cup. My concern is kind of just aligned with yours in that sense, where it's like this is a player that's played a lot. And will that itself lead to injuries or anything like that? Like, we don't know. And then what happens when he does get injured, if he does get injured? It's a bit of a mess. It's a hot mess.
I think we should definitely be prepared to see a lot of Job this season. And I don't think that Dortmund would have necessarily secured the signing of Job without being able to guarantee him X number of minutes or X number of appearances. Everything has pointed to the fact that Job was their number one transfer target.
Number one target,
yep. We secured him.
Joey, is that because we signed him and haven't signed anyone else?
That would be potentially. But I mean, we pursued this guy. We got him on the books. As you both said, he looked pretty good at the Club World Cup. And I mean, by the second match, which was kind of cool I was at, he was ready to start. And he started and scored on his first start for Dortmund. So I think it's a good sign of things to come. And those were also matches on some of the worst pitches that I think I've ever watched football on. So I think, I don't know, I don't have a lot of doubts of this guy right now. I think he's up for the challenge. I don't think he's going to be too intimidated in the new stadium. If anything, I think it's going to push him forward. Because I think this kid is just as talented as his brother, maybe even a little more so. Time will tell. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I've got a good feeling about Job.
Joey, you actually reminded me of something, and I just want to jump in real quick before I lose this thought. It's interesting because you mentioned how he was ready to start by the second game. Prior to the first game where he did come off the bench, Niko Kovac was quoted in saying, "Don't expect him to start. He needs time to bed into the team." And then by the second game, they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we're just gonna start him. All right, it's fine. It's all good." So he bedded into the team really quick for some reason. Gee, I wonder why. So yeah, he's going to be playing a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have two midfielders that are capable of running. And like Pascal Gross runs, but like Pascal Gross runs in like the way that like if you put me next to Usain Bolt and we're both running, it only looks like one of us is running. Like, just seeing the athleticism throughout the full 90 minutes of a match, Mecha and Job are just so far beyond what Pascal Gross does. And Pascal Gross does very, very good things, don't get me wrong. But in terms of just covering ground and covering it quickly, there's a whole nother level to it. But the thing I kind of noticed from the Club World Cup, and this is in part because he got played as a forward almost at times, and even in the midfield, he was able to get in the box from time to time, trading off with Nemecha. He had 7 goal contributions last year. I would put the mark a lot higher because we play a lot more attacking football than Sunderland did in the championship. I'm gonna put the mark at 10. Do you actually no? That's a little too high. I'm gonna put the mark at 9 because there's only 34 league games. So in 34 league games, do you think Joe Bellingham can get 9 goals and assists?
9 total.
Yeah, 9 total.
I think you could do more than that. I'll be honest. I
Me too.
think 9 might actually be a very conservative number. I think he could get closer to 12 total, 12, 14. Especially with the amount of minutes he's going to be playing. I see
Especially
him
for,
doing.
talking
Yeah.
assists too. I definitely see him in a playmaker role.
Really? He had 7 in 39 starts last year.
But you're talking about a league that's a lot like, and a team, I guess, that's not really pushing him to play that role. And I think he said that too in his
Yeah.
interview when he joined the club. He did say that he himself played a far more conservative game because that's what the team needed him to do. That's what Sunderland asked of him. He's unleashed here. He's unchained. So it's
Yeah.
like it's not like he doesn't have the restrictions that he had at Sunderland. So I do think allowing him to do that and allowing him the ability to go forward more, which you've already seen him do, I don't see a problem with him hitting more than 10 goal contributions in a season.
I think it'll happen.
Yeah, I think I made a very good line. I'm gonna give some credit to myself. I'm with two optimists, but I think like even if he's only at 9, that's 2 more than he got last season, going from like a very good second tier to the top flight and also having to play Champions League football. I don't think he plays all 34. Like he's going to get yellow card accumulation, so it's not like he's going to play all 34 matches. Even if he stays fit all year. Uh so I think nine's a I'm going to have to defend my line for the
As
over
you're free to
under,
do.
but I do agree. I think he's going to go over. I'm feeling optimistic about Joe Bellingham. Um Lastly, we have Julian Brandt, much maligned, but he finished the season in tremendous form, 15 goals and assists in the league. Another season, I believe his 4th straight with 20 goals and assists in all competitions. He added 5 assists in the Champions League. What are you guys expecting from Julian Brandt this next season?
I think it really depends on who we bring in, because I I believe this very firmly. When Julian Brandt, when he did have Marco Royce and a Gio Reyna in better form behind him. Well, I guess that season it was mainly Royce because Reyna did go out on loan. But he had his best season 2 seasons ago for us, right? He had an actual player behind him that could push him. You get a player in that can really push him, you might see a better version of him again this season. I do think that's a big thing because this season we didn't have anyone really to push him. Let's be honest. Reyna was just not doing it. And I think with that, I guess, level of comfort and knowing that you don't really have anyone else. I mean, we tried playing Chukwuemeka in that position at times, but because of the team makeup and the way Kovac played, we didn't even see Chukwuemeka play in that role as much as we would have even wanted to. So I don't think he had as much competition. If you give him the right competition and push him, you see a better version of him. Also, if you have another player that comes in as a 10, you also can play him in more of that attacking 8 role, which we have seen him play in the past, which he did do pretty well in under Favre when he first came into Dortmund. Because we did have Royce at the time who was occupying the 10 position for the most part, and you still wanted Brandt on the pitch, so they fit him in there, and he had decent games, so you might see that as well. But yeah, that's really what I think it depends on. It really depends on, once again, the circumstances around him. If there's a player that we bring in that is of starter quality, we're not going to see as much of Julian Brandt unless that pushes him to perform better and show that he's capable and should be playing. So yeah, that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, so to kind of go off of what you're saying, Brian, I mean, I think we saw two different versions of Julian Brandt last season. We saw the poor end of the inconsistency, especially under Nuri Sahin, and then we saw him start recording goals and assists again, especially under Kovac. And the two big differences that we can really identify between the first half and the second half of the season is first being a player like Chukwuemeka in the squad who might not be able to displace Brandt, but like you said, push him a little bit, help him improve just through competition. And then you also have the other aspect of a new trainer. Um, and that's, I don't know enough about how Kovac is coaching these players, in practice and in the locker room. And I think there could be something that Kovac has had to say that has inspired Julian Brandt to return to form. But also, like you said, I think a lot of it depends on the players on the pitch around him, not just who's the backup 10 or who do we have pushing him in that role. But if he has a strong team of players around him, I mean, I think Brandt always plays better when there seems to be like a cohesive game plan, so to speak.
Right.
So, I mean, I do think, I mean, Brandt, I would be so surprised if we saw Brandt leave this summer at this point, especially with the sort of lack of prospects in that role.
Right.
And I thoroughly expect him to keep starting in that role. But again, I think he's I want to say 29 now. And he is going to be slowing down in that 10 role as well. So I mean, some of this might depend, and if we don't get a good 10 to back him up, then I wouldn't be surprised if the club seeks another 10 in the winter, because what we really don't want is a situation where Brandt might either just leave for free in the summer and we don't have a backup, because if we extend Brandt, then I would want that to be on merit alone, and not just because we don't have another option for a 10, so we're going to extend Brandt. I mean, I'm a fan of the player, so don't get me wrong there. But I want to see a more consistent season from him this time around than last year, despite the fact that he did finish on pretty high goals and assists. It's more about the consistency.
I don't
Just
think
one point,
Chukwuemeka had any effect on Julian Brandt.
I mean, that's the thing. I agree with that. I think he was meant to have it, but he didn't. But just the one point that Joey made that I kind of wanted to jump on before I kind of lose my train of thought is that it really does depend on the players around Brandt, because I don't think he is the player that's going to bring this team up and elevate them all on his own. He's not that guy. I've always said this, and I still firmly believe this. Brandt is a bit of a luxury player. He's not the leader. He's not the guy that's going to be like, guys, let's go, let's do this. He's very quiet. He performs well. He's elegant, but he's not like that fighter like type player, or the one that kind of like, when you look at him, I don't see a fire behind him. And that's okay. That is okay as long as everyone else around him kind of has that. So I think that if the players around Brandt and the people behind Brandt are pushing him to be the best version of himself, or allowing him to by taking on a little bit more of that work that we need to see from players in the midfield or starting for Dortmund in general, I think then we see a better player. But without that, he is a bit of a luxury player. He's not the leader. He's not the person that's going to push this team forward.
Yeah, when you have a striker that doesn't press, like, you only really get one player in your team that doesn't press at all. And Sergio Guirassy doesn't press. Not really at all. And so that means Julian Brandt has to press, and he's not great at it, because especially like maybe a few years ago when he was playing that attacking role under Favre, with Marco Reus ahead of him, who was so good in the press as a 10, like, there's a little bit more cover for him defensively. Like, this is a guy that needs a little bit of help defensively. Like, he's going to try. He's just not very good at it. And that's okay. But that's also going to look very ugly if the team is incoherent overall. And
exactly,
like, we're talking about like, oh, Julian Brandt looks better. Like, the whole team looked better at the end of the year. And so we know Julian Brandt is still capable of performing. We just need the whole team to kind of have a coherent game plan and function. And then we'll continue to see good things from Julian Brandt. But what we're talking about with Julian Brandt is like when he was younger and he was in better shape, he was even having his best season when Marco Reus was able to maybe not start every game, but start here and there and come in for the last 20, 30 minutes. You don't necessarily need a guy that you want to start against like Barcelona, against Real Madrid, but you at the very least, even if you're in a transition year, you need a guy that can come in and give you 30 minutes off the bench every single week. And we have not had that in so long. Even when Gio Reyna was looking incredible off the bench, he was not 30 full minutes every week. You need a guy that can give you 30 minutes a week. If you can get McAtee on a straight loan, fine. Like, you at least need a body there that can occupy minutes for a full season until Samuel Ignacio's a little bit older, until Czerny's a little bit older. Like, we can see how these guys develop and maybe even get them a minute or two here or there this season. But you need, like, this is a guy that's 29. He's played like 3,000 minutes almost every season since he was 18. So, like, a lot of the players, like, we're talking about Pascal Gross. Pascal Gross was at about like 1,500 minutes a season up until he was like 28. And, like, yeah, there's some seasons where he's like in the low 2,000s. But in terms of minutes, in terms of matches played, like, it's night and day. And that's why one guy is able to play at a very high level until he's 34, and another guy maybe isn't, because he's played so many more minutes. He has a ton of miles under his legs, and he needs to be able to be rested. And, like, that isn't down to the coach. Like, the coach can't just come in and say, hey, we're swapping you out for whoever. Like, there may be weeks where we play a 3-4-3 instead of a like 3-5-2. Like, maybe we drop Brandt and we play like Maxi Bayer out wide and like let him and Kareem Adeyemi like invert whenever their side doesn't have the ball, like something like that. But you need to have a system that accommodates for Julian Brandt getting rested. And if you have a 3-4-3 and you don't and you want to rotate him out and switch to that system, that's fine. Just get me another like talented winger, because right now we only have two of those guys that you can trust to play there. So, like, you either need another starting level winger or a starting level 10, ideally a guy who can do a little bit of both. Enzo Mio. So, like, you need a guy there, although Enzo Mio would probably start over Julian Brandt, let's be honest. But, like, you do need a guy. And I don't know if it has to be a winger, if it has to be a 10. Ideally, it's someone who can play both. But you need a guy who can come in and, whether it's changing your system, allow you to rotate more easily, or just replace him like for like, that is, it's so needed. I'm repeating myself. I could repeat myself, but I don't necessarily. I'm repeating myself too much because I'm not sure that it's going to happen, and I'm starting to get stressed. But hopefully by the time this episode is live, we'll have Enzo Mio or like someone else. I don't know.
Doubt it.
Yeah,
Big doubt.
I do too. I do too. Can you hear it in my voice, Joey?
Big doubt, unfortunately. But we'll see. Prove us wrong, Dortmund.
We can hope.
Anyway, any last thoughts on the midfield before we get?
No, I think we covered everything.
Think so.
Okay, well, make sure you follow us at Dortmund Dispatch on all socials, anywhere you get your podcast. Rate us 5 stars, like on YouTube, and subscribe. We're pushing to 100 subs, so please subscribe as we work on that. We really appreciate all your support. And is there anything you guys have been working on lately? I
have co-founded a new literary journal, and we are going to be putting it's called The Long and the Short of It, and we're going to be putting out our first call for submissions in August. So I will plug that at a later date and give you the info in case you are a creative writer.
Yeah, I've actually pivoted to a bit more of my creative writing as well as of right now. Considering the summer's been as slow as it has been for us, I haven't really put too much work into any soccer writing as of now. But yeah, just kind of go with my creative flow right now. I've been in one, so I'm trying to use that right while I have it, you know. So
Harness
I
it
feel
for sure.
harness it exactly. I feel you, Joey.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining, and have a good one.
Jadon Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce out. Another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond
Jetzt
compare.
kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inso an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!